and welcome back to Record-ology. What you see before you are 4 Crosley portable stereo turntables / record players. Why do I have these set out? Because I thought I'd make an interesting show. So my plan is this. We are going to talk about how they compare to each other, rank them, give you my thoughts, and then I would like to see your rankings down below if there's any that I forgot. Now, to be qualified for this, they need to be Crosley branded, they needed to be portable, and they need to be sort of tier 2. You'll notice there's no suitcase, or I should say Crosley cruisers on here. We're talking about the next echelon. These are all moving magnetic. In fact, they all share a very common platter mechanism. So I'm going to really evaluate them on other aspects, such as the casing, the feature set, the sound quality, things of that nature. So anyway, you're not going to want to miss this.
This is Record-ology.
Okay, so let's start at the superficial level here. These are all OEM products. From the best of my knowledge, I don't know for sure. 2 of these are discontinued. The Collegiate, by the way, let me introduce the participants. We have the Crosley Collegiate, the Crosley Nomad, the Crosley Danielette Jr, and the Crosley Portfolio. Yes, this is my Beatles portfolio, but for today's show and today's purpose, we're going to evaluate it as simply a portfolio. I will have links down below for where you can get these 2. I don't think, sometimes these will pop up still. People are clearing out inventory, but these are discontinued products, which is a shame, at least in one instance, which you will see soon. But you can buy these still. And there's also a variant of this that has legs on it. I think they call it the Bermuda. But anyway, let's jump into it. These 2, actually these 3 have the strapped handles. This has a fixed handle. And that's kind of where the similarities end. They're very, very different. So let's start left to right and just kind of take a look at each one. If you're interested in deeper dives on any of these, we reviewed all of them. So check out the reviews that we've done, the unboxing reviews. Now this is a Crosley Collegiate, sadly discontinued. And that is really a shame because this is a fantastic, fantastic little record player. Sort of has the styling, the front end of a race car, metal grille. I love the big, bold branding. And this is kind of, it's very basic. It's got a 12, they're all 12 volt machines, which is common to that, mechanism under the hood. It's got a little compartment under here, which is genius. It's the only one of these that has a compartment for the power supply. I think that's huge. I wish they all did. I think it's really annoying to have a portable turntable that is portable, then you have to lug this around separately. So I love the fact that they've included that with this. And they made at least 2 color variants. There's the white and blue, and then there was a red and white. What did I say? Blue and white. Red and white as well. And I'm not sure if there was a third. There might have been. And this is just fantastic. To me, it's kind of modeled like similar to, and all of these are, by the way, are reminiscent of previously issued turntables by other brands, which is cool because it's like you get to relive the designs of vintage record players under the Crosley brand. I think that's really cool with, modern touches and improvements. So this kind of is reminiscent to me of a classroom record player because the front speaker's up front and this part's raised and then the platter is kind of behind it lower. The plinth is at a lower level. And so yeah, this is like a modern classroom record player. And like they all have this similar mechanism, which has a moving magnetic Audio-Technica 3600L. It has an adjustable counterbalance. It has 3 speeds. They'll all do all 3 speeds. And then an auto on and off as well. Now the Collegiate has a headphone jack. It's got a tone adjustment, which is huge to some people. It also has a USB connection and an aux in. So that's some pretty good features for a nice little portable. But this thing is rugged. We've done a teardown on it too. If you want to see what it looks like inside, check out that video. But it's been rugged. It's been reliable. It's very compact in size compared to some of the other ones we're going to take a look at. So let's go ahead and give it a sound test. So to sound test all of these, I'm going to be using this Compact 33, Project 3. This is Enoch Light, which usually I can get away with using Enoch Light music. So today's show is in mono. These are stereo turntables, but they're not going to have a wide sound stage. unless you're really in the room. Even then, they're going to have a kind of limited stereo image. So it's not beneficial for me to use the stereo mics. I mean, they're going to perform similarly in that regard. So we're just going to listen ambiently in the room here. Here is the Collegiate. Give it a listen. Now, I feel like this one has good overall volume. That's a topic that's going to come up a couple of times in today's show. I feel like the sound is bright. It's punchy. Overall, this sounds great. In fact, I don't have any gripes, and I'm going to mention gripes as I go, but this one I don't really have any gripes. I like the hard shell plastic design. It's very rugged. It's designed in such a way where the handle's on the back, and you store it upright with this on the bottom, you can't see what I'm doing. This part on the bottom. I just think that makes sense. The one gripe I will say right off the bat, though, is this mechanism, which is very effective, doesn't do any damage, does a great job, but there's no cueing lever, so you have to master the art of sort of pushing back on this lift to gain leverage. And it's all based on the steadiness of your hand, which if you're like me, I'm not so steady. So that can be kind of tricky. So you don't want to just lift it up. You want to push back to get that leverage. It's hard to describe, something you just kind of get used to. I wish it had a cueing lever. I prefer that always. Okay, let's go on to the next unit. Okay, so this is the Nomad. And I've kind of had a roller coaster of emotions about this unit throughout my time owning it. There are moments when I'm just like, I just don't think it's my favorite one. And there's other times when I'm like, I really do like it. It feels like equipment. I mean, it feels like a musical instrument. I can imagine lifting the lid and there's some kind of musical instrument there. It feels like road gear. It reminds me of something from my days in, television production when we're, moving equipment and whatnot in road cases. This is very heavy and sturdy. It feels very rugged. Part of my misgivings that have been sort of on and off, like I mentioned before, have to do with this fabric. It's a very rough sort of burlap. It is very rugged. It does have snags. You'll see multiple snags like in the corners, and I think there's a rip. Yeah. There's some thread that's ripped out here. And look at that. It just comes loosely off. I mean, you know what I mean? This kind of stuff is annoying to me. I think I would like a more finished appearance. This is old too. This was made in 2014. On the back of this one, it is also a USB, so you can hook it up to your computer. 12 volts like we had before, line output. So the Collegiate had a headphone out, but it didn't have a line out, I believe. So this one has an aux in and a headphone out as well as a line out USB. And let's look at the top of the unit. Same clips, exact same clips as a Collegiate. And the top lifts off. That took me some getting used to as well. Like I was like, I don't know if I like the idea of the lid coming off. I've sort of gotten used to that. It's pretty common. Again, you'll see some anomalies in the fabric. This is a good, look at this turntable after it's been used quite a bit. And again, we've got a very similar mechanism here. So I'm going to go ahead and put on a record. And I'm going to power it up. One thing I noticed about this turntable that sort of disappointed me a little bit, and it's still the case, is that it's very quiet. So if I turn this thing all the way up, like that's fully capped out. And it's a little too quiet for me. The next thing that's kind of interesting about this is the speakers are on the sides. There's one over here, one over there. I think it might be a 4x6 speaker. I'm not 100% sure on that. So the stereo imaging is bizarre. I mean, they're just shooting sideways. So this is more of a fill the room kind of a turntable, not one you would just sit down in front of it to enjoy some stereo music. But it's hampered by the fact that it's too quiet. And I would guess that's specific to this particular example, this piece, not the design of the overall unit. Perhaps I could get in there and there's maybe an adjustable pot. I'm not sure, but sound quality's fine. I would say it's very comparable to the Collegiate. I mean, I don't hear any noticeable increase or decrease between the two. So yeah, that's the Nomad. It's an interesting It's an interesting one. It's still, this fabric, I don't know. Some days I think it's cool. Some days I just really wish, because it's basically glued. As you can see by the construction there, these different shapes and pieces are cut out and then glued. And since day one, there's been sort of these little anomalies. So, it's just the way it is. So there you go. That is the Nomad. Also discontinued. The next two are in production still as of the publication date of this unit, of this video. So let's look at the Crosley Danielette Jr. Now this is the biggest unit of the lot. Let me say a word on storage. The second unit, the Nomad, you basically turn it up on end and rest it on one of those speakers. It's a good resting place. The next two units, a gripe I have is that it's kind of tough to store them without just leaving them flat like this. If you put them up on the end like this, if you want to store it like that, they're resting on these hinges. So I think there should be feet on the back in addition to feet on the bottom like this. I think that would make a lot of sense. So this is the Danielette Jr. This is modeled after the famous Danielette record player in the UK during the 1950s. It was very popular. There's also a Bermuda, which is very, very similar to this. There's a couple different color combinations. You can get them with the legs or without. There's a couple less variants available on the Crosley site last time I looked, so I don't know if they're phasing this out. I hope they don't, because I really, really like this unit. In fact, before I, really process in my mind, just a, cursory thought process, this is my favorite of the bunch. But we're going to rank them here in a minute. So you've got the stereo speakers up front. You've got the on and off switch. Somebody referred to these types of knobs as peanut butter cups because they have that kind of tapered, ridged edge. And I thought that was kind of funny. It's got a handle on that side and another one over here. There's two clips on a hinged lid. On the back side, we've got the 12-volt power supply and a line output with recessed, sort of flush-mounted RCA jacks. And on the bottom, there's nothing except for the feet. And that's pretty much it. It's got a nice sort of vinyl plastic, I wouldn't call it plastic, more of a vinyl leatherette wrap over what I'm sure is an MDF material or some sort of composite material. The lid does hinge up. I'm going to tilt it down so you can see it better in the shot. It's got the Crosley logo in the lid. And then the familiar mechanism. And I like the fact that they have this switch over here. The original would have had a big, thick metal platter like my Audiotronics, and it would have been a rim drive. This one obviously is belt driven. All of these are belt driven. Let's go ahead and plug it in. And it's pretty simple, but it's got a lot of space and it's unique. You know what I mean? It just doesn't look like every other record player out there. So I'm going to set that to 33 RPM. And I'm going to pull back the clip here. I'm going to turn the unit on. This one does have an aux input and a headphone jack on the front. I forgot to mention that. The price range on these is going to be higher than those entry-level, suitcase players. You're going to be in the 150-ish range. Versus the $30 to $60 range. So it is a little bit higher. So yeah, but I like this one. It sounds to me good. It sounds maybe a tad bit tinnier than the previous two. That being said, I'm getting much better volume, much better punch on this. Let's switch on the front just to change inputs between aux and phonograph. Let's change, oops, don't do that. Oops. And that's the auto shut off. See that? So if your auto shut off isn't allowing you to play to the end of the record, that's why you would shut that off, so you can put it anywhere you want. It's bright, it's sharp, it's punchy. It's lacking a little bit of bass versus the previous two, but some people don't like to admit this. But part of the experience of any turntable, but especially a portable, especially a novelty unit, although novelty implies that it's unusable, it's just decorative, and that's not the case. But part of that experience is truly the design aesthetic. We're buying these things partially for the way they look and the way they make us feel on an emotional level, either from a point of I remember this from when I was a kid, or I remember my mom and dad, my grandma and grandpa, or perhaps it's just nostalgic and that's something that people like. That's an important thing. And again, and I've said this over and over, and yet people will be in the comments to remind me, I guarantee you, these are not designed to compete with high-end turntables. Now again, we're not going to evaluate this on this particular version, which is the Beatles Yellow Submarine that you can only get on Record Store Day. It's coming up, by the way, in a couple of days. And they only made 1,500 of this version. However, the underlying turntable record player, the Portfolio, is common, and you can definitely get one of those in different colors and styles. So that's what we're going to be evaluating in today's show. So this one also suffers from that same problem where it needs feet on the back, in my opinion, because I would like to store it like this, but it's just kind of sort of teetering on those clips, on those hinges. So I would like that. You kind of have to, the only feet are on the bottom. That's the only place the feet are at. We've got the USB RCA line output and that same 12 volt deal. Here we've got the speaker grills. They are on the sides, which this one's a bit narrower, quite a bit narrower than the Nomad. So I don't notice the sound staging being as funky as I do on that one. Let's go ahead and power it up. And let's look under the hood. Same clips, I think. Now these are a little different clips. Okay, and just because I have it open, there's a look at the lid there. And again, I'm going to focus on the common aspects, not the special edition one. This has the same mechanism. This one came with a rubber mat. The other ones all have these 3 rubber grips. There's a little clip here that holds a platter in place. If you pull that clip off and manage not to lose it, you can just lift the platter right off on all of these and easily replace the belt. So, again, same basic mechanism. Some of these are shock mounted, but if you were keenly eyed in the previous ones, you'll notice not all of them are. Some of them are fixed to the plinth, but this one is shock mounted to give you a little isolation. Sometimes people send me a message to be like, something's wrong with my record player. How do I, make that not do that? But it's actually a good thing. This one has the Bluetooth functionality added in. We're not going to talk about that. It also has pitch control, which is huge. I think this is the only one among the 4 that has pitch control. So at all 3 speeds, you can adjust the pitch control. Headphone jack, aux input as well. So let's go ahead without further ado and spin up a record and give it a listen. Right off the bat, I wish I had a tone control because I would turn the tone down a bit. I could use a little bit more volume. I'm just trying to think as objectively as I possibly can. It does not sound quite as full in terms of frequency response as the Collegiate and the Nomad. It's also a little bit quiet. I wish the volume went up just a tad bit. It's nowhere near as quiet as the Nomad. That's pretty loud, actually. The volume is fine. Let's go ahead and listen to another little track here. Sounds good. It actually has plenty of volume. And it is a bit brighter than the first 2 again, but if you weren't listening to them side by side, would you really perceive a difference? I would say no. Okay, now, gosh, I love this unit. This is a great turntable. And again, even without the Beatles overlay stuff, just the turntable itself, the record player itself, it's phenomenal. Okay, let's go ahead and rank these. It's going to be first to last, left to right. And I'm going to tell you why for each one. Okay, first one for me, gosh, this is a tough one. This is really tough. But I'm going to go with the Danielette Jr. I like the heft of it. I like the overall design aesthetic. I like the speed change mechanism. I know it's a silly, small thing, but to me, it's something that I enjoy. So I'm going to put that first. And then an insurmountably small difference away is going to be the Portfolio at number 2. I like this because it's bigger, and I like this because it's a little bit more compact. It's very streamlined. I love the rugged handle versus the soft TPU strap. And yeah, I think that's just a fantastic, tight, really good unit. Third for me is going to be the Collegiate. It's a fantastic unit. Just compact, as you can see. It does everything. It even holds the power supply, which no other turntable here can say it does. And then in last place is going to be this guy, the Nomad, which I put up there backwards. So for the Nomad, it's a little bit quiet. The speakers on the edges, it's a little bit funky in terms of stereo imaging, and then the material, I'm still not so sure about. Every once in a while I will pull it out. I do enjoy it. Obviously I've kept it around, so that's testament to that. So this is how I would rank them, 1, 2, 3, and 4, with my favorite being on the left and my least favorite being on the right. But you'll notice I said least favorite, meaning that it's still a favorite. I think all 4 of these are great. Let me know down in the comments below how you would rank them or any others that I should have considered. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today. Happy record hunting. We will see you next time.